during the trial, and when they actually have to address these points, say, not write those messages. I was here. Lance, my boyfriend, was logged into my phone, logged into my app and my iCloud, sending messages. I know that we have a capability because my husband does it. He has the capability to send messages from my phone. It is not convincing to the public when, for whatever reason, the FBI combined with the SBI, it was not the prosecution's fault. They made that clear during that hearing, would not allow them that discovery request to be able to see where did that message come from. Because you're saying my client was here, right? I want to know if that message actually was generated from his iPhone when he was waiting to retrieve his, rifle, hoping that the pooch doesn't have a bad sniffer, like just weird messages. I want to make sure that, yes, it was actually him. He was holding his phone and his boyfriend didn't just log in to his computer when he was home. Lance was his boyfriend. That is a crucial fact here. That discovery was not met by the time I got to preliminary hearing. So I remain unconvinced by these text messages. Just as you feel convinced by them, I feel unconvinced by them.
Okay. So then the idea here is the reason that you don't think that these are valid text messages, and you don't, right?
It has not been proven that these messages are valid, and they don't sound valid to me. I don't think anyone, even if someone was selling like a
in the screen,
I don't know, pot on the corner, would be smarter than to write a full-fledged confession. He even writes, I thought I would get away with it, and I was hoping never to tell you until old age. And then we're being told that he wanted to commit suicide. And
oh no.
And he said victims and rights
but do you see how that's
to I don't know, maybe not text it's such a confession like we've never seen. I think this would be like the first time ever somebody has start to finish written an entire I'm in the surveillance footage and I'm here and I'm wearing my Converse. I'm being a little facetious here, but it was a little ridiculous. It didn't pass the sniff test for me.
You have kids. And you love them more than anything.
I do.
If it was the case that you thought that your kid was innocent, wouldn't you be out telling everybody and their brother that you thought that they were innocent? And also, wouldn't you maybe recant and say, hey, I didn't actually
sticking up for him?
He didn't actually confess to me. He didn't actually. None of this happened the way that the state is presenting it. What would have prevented the parents from testifying?
Well, two things. I can answer that. And if you watch my show, I keep telling you it's not vibes. So right after the shooting happened, Lance Twiggs, the FBI put him into a safe house they paid for. They went to the parents as well. Matt Robinson and Amber basically said, your life's at risk. There could be somebody who jumps up and wants to avenge Charlie Kirk. And, we're going to watch you. And they went into a federal safe house. What happened next is that they started thinking that the feds were maybe going to, maybe not as honest as they thought. And
how do you know any of that?
You gotta watch the show, right?
Yeah, no, how do you know that?
I had a source within the Robinson family.
You have a source, an anonymous source, of course. So there's no way for us to verify that what you're saying right now is actually even true.
You find it to be reliable hearsay?
No, I don't find it to be reliable at all. It's just a source.
I'm just doing what the
What
prosecution
you're doing is a cool story.
It's not cool. Well, you must have paid to watch the preliminary hearing.
You're giving us a cool story. You're saying that according to your sources, that the reason that the parents haven't recanted any of this.
Recanted what? They have no statement from the parents.
Wait, I just want to make sure that if it was the case that was being reported in mainstream media, that your father came to you and said, hey, is this you? What's going on here? And then he and one of his buddies took you in where you turned yourself in. You wouldn't go out and be like, no, that's not what happened.
That isn't what happened, though. You're just wrong on this.
Okay, maybe I'm paraphrasing. What am I wrong on?
What is sorry, just so I'm clear, where's your evidence that the parents turned him in?
Well, no, I didn't say that.
You said there's a mainstream media?
I said with
necessarily
a sheriff friend.
Yes,
but the father did confront him.
The father confronted what?
Tyler Robinson.
And where did you learn this? That the Tyler confronted
that's part of the official documents. Our fact checkers can pull that up.
But I'm saying, but when you say official documents, do you mean you saw this on CNN or you saw this play out in the hearing?
No, this was one of the things that I went through fact check pre-debate.
Are you talking about the charging documents?
I think it was it could have been in the charging documents, but we can't pull them up.
No.
And yes, are you disputing this?
Do you have that on the back to pull it up?
I can already tell you what you're talking about, the charging documents, because this is where we had to figure out where this story came from, because everyone was operating on the assumption that Matt Robinson turned him in. until we got to the preliminary hearing and we understood, like I said, even for that, when you are doing someone, you can use hearsay. It's all probative, right?
Sure,
Nothing.
especially
So
in
they
the way
didn't
the
have
JFK,
statements. It's not like Matt
9/11,
Robinson, even though he was
weapons of
interviewed
mass
that night.
destruction in
Amber
Iraq.
Robinson was
Everybody's
interviewed that
sick of
night
this
by a
stuff.
Fed, separate
We don't
rooms.
wanna be lied to.
Charlie Robinson was interviewed by a Fed. They did not produce statements saying, my son did this. My son, I believe my son did this. But what
None of
happened
these are
was they did
relevant
interviews,
points to
but
argue. Why are
also
we
the
listening to
crucial
this
person
crap?
here who you just brought up
Do you
is
want?
Mike
We could
Mitchell.
back scrub
Mike
it.
Mitchell
That's
is
what
the
happened
biggest
earlier.
unknown in this
I could
entire
back
case.
scrub a
Everyone
little bit in
keeps
the
saying they heard
conversation.
from Mike Mitchell this, they heard
I'm
from Mike
almost
Mitchell
curious
that.
to listen to a
So when
different part.
the person wrote up the
We can go
report that
back
night, and it was Brian
retroactively, listen
Davis
to
who
what
wrote
was
up
at the beginning.
what became the charging document. He after they transported Tyler Robinson from the Washington Sheriff's County office up to I think it's Salt Lake
believe that
City.
she's done a lot
I
of
think it
looking
was
into
4 a.m. in the
these
morning. I
things.
think I got up there.
And when
He
she
then
goes, they
writes
took
the
them Tuesday.
charging, what becomes a
they
charging
didn't get there
document. So
till
he's basically
Thursday.
saying,
She knows what
we
she's
all
talking
spoke
about.
to a bunch of people and here's the information that we got, right? We've not seen that. So it could have come from Mike Mitchell. Mike Mitchell could be saying,
I don't know how this negates the point.
Messaging
it
Why wouldn't
truly
the
negates the
parents?
point because you don't have a statement from the parents.
Yeah,
you are going.
Why wouldn't they just correct
Nobody's
the,
in the chat.
It's not
the
correcting. That
misinformation?
doesn't negate the
Streaming
point.
this
The
right
point
now.
is that we now got the preliminary hearing. If the parents were the ones who said, "I'm turning my son in because he's guilty,"
I didn't say they turned him in.
I think you're talking about the over. You said it's been the narrative. Everybody's known this. The narrative initially, which I think you agree with, was that Matt Robinson knew his kid was guilty and turned him into the police station. What actually happened in terms of Sheriff Brooksby, who was present there and gave a press conference, what happened was this Mike Mitchell character essentially peer pressured him, and we can get a fact check on this. We can find Sheriff Brooksby's press conference, and he said, they know it's you, and you're going to come in peaceably, or people are going to be banging down your door. He was a undercover cop, which I don't like that. I don't know what he did undercover. It's very hard to find anything about Mike Mitchell, but he worked with them for 20 plus years, the police officers. The reason why Tyler Robinson knew him was because he lived nearby and he was also his Boy Scout leader.
How does this negate that the parents could write this second? And by the way, if you have
I'm
the
going to
evidence,
address that point. I'm just saying that your first point, which is that the parents did this.
Yeah.
We don't know that the parents.
I didn't say that they did ever. Never
Well,
happened.
you're quoting the parents as having said. You said that Matt Robinson said that his kid was. You say involved. I don't want to misquote you.
Confronted him about it.
Confronted him.
Yes.
And I'm telling you that we have not seen any evidence that is true.
We can fact check that.
Okay.
Because we do have evidence.
And I'm saying it's the charging doc, which could have been derived from a statement Mike Mitchell said.
Two things I have ready in the back. One
Well,
is the charging doc, and the
yes.
other one is the video of Kathy Nestor saying she hasn't seen Tyler's phone.
Okay, we can
Okay.
run
Which
Kathy to
one
go
would you
back,
wanna
and
see
then
first?
just to
You
go
wanna see
backwards
Kathy
to
first?
Kathy first in court saying she didn't get her client's phone. Yeah, and then I think we'll go to the. If you're okay with that.
A thing not in dispute. These are all things that I'm not even disputing.
Okay, so we don't have to show it.
We never get to the thing that I am disputing.
Well, I was just providing an answer. We were coming back in from a break because you were talking about the text messages, something that you felt was concrete. So it was just my rebuttal to you that it's not concrete because they haven't had a chance to actually answer that. And she didn't even get to see your client's phone. So that's effectively, again, the state saying these messages are real. You don't get the discovery on these messages just yet. She will during trial. They will actually
Don't
discover
you
the
think
messages.
that would make the
channel,
case
and it
fall
doesn't
apart
pull
if
it
it was
up.
the case that they weren't able to actually pull the data
Well, I know
off
that
text messages?
channel
Do you
was
think the prosecution would go to court and fabricate a text message?
It's called winners and losers. They may not be fabricated. But by the way, as what they are saying, like I said, if there was somebody logged into his phone, they may not be fabricated. That's the point.
So let's get to
They just could be somebody else.
The parents fact check.
Yeah, so I was saying, I believe what you're talking about was derived from the charging doc, which was signed off by Brian Davis. Let's see if that's correct.
Rule 10. That should find it. It's always found it before.
What are we looking at here?
Robinson's mother explained that over the last year or so, I'm sorry.
Can you zoom in a
Is
little
this
bit?
the charging
I can't
doc?
see it. Robinson's
yes.
father reported that when his wife showed him the
So there's
surveillance
court
image of the
records, huh?
suspected shooter in the news, he agreed that it looked like their son. He also believed that the rifle that police suspected the shooter used matched the rifle that was given to his son as a gift. As a result, Robinson's father contacted his son and asked him to send a photo of the rifle, which makes sense with the text messages. Robinson did not respond. However, Robinson's father spoke on the phone with Robinson. Robinson implied he planned to take his own life. Robinson's parents were able to convince him to meet at their home.
Yes. So this is proving my point. This is from the charging document, correct? Yeah. So what I'm saying to you is that 3 people got interviewed on that night. Mike Mitchell got interviewed, Amber Robinson got interviewed, and Matt Robinson got interviewed. Of the 3 of them, only one of them actually wrote a statement, which was referred to in this preliminary trial. He came in, I believe, in March, Mike Mitchell. and he wrote a statement, which I find to be very shady that they decided to bring.
But why aren't the parents disputing that?
No. Well, first off,
that's the question.
First off, the parents are not going to ever play in court, play to the cameras in court when they have a legal team that is going to be advising them not to speak to the court because your son could go to prison
but
forever.
They're playing to somebody else who's your source.
I'm not going to address that.
They're playing to someone else who's your source, but won't go publicly tell the media this is not true.
Well, what I did not say to you that I just said I have a source, so I want to be very clear and take it from somebody who is involved and permanently sued. When I have to take my lawyer's advice, I mean, there's so many things that I want to respond to when people are speaking about.
Yeah, but it's bizarre that they would utilize a source which would get the information to you, but wouldn't just go to the media and be like, actually, that's all wrong.
I am telling you that you would nary find a lawyer who would advise you to go to the media.
This mother,
especially when your son is
if I thought that my kid
was up for death.
If I thought that my kid was in any way, shape, or form going to be able, you couldn't shut me up. Or my wife, she would be like, that's not true. That's ridiculous.
Like,
there's no possible. That never happened. These people are lying to their teeth. They'd be public whether you like it or not.
That's
for you and your wife. But when a judge issues a gag order in a case and your son is up for death, and your lawyers could be advising you that if you say anything to blow the case, you would have a more responsible consideration.
I see.
And we're speaking opinion here. You're like, well, I wouldn't care. I'd violate it and I'd violate the judge's orders and see what happens. I'm not
violating it with them.
I'm not speaking to a source, but what I am saying to you is speaking just relevant to what this is. We have not seen any proof that statement that is included in this charging document. I think it is highly likely on the basis of the preliminary hearing that all came from Mike Mitchell. And Mike Mitchell would be a part of, he's saying,
the statement. It's good to disregard the advice of
well, it's him saying, the parents told me this, the parents could dispute that. That's going to come down the line, right? They're going to be able to see the parents. I will say this, putting together context clues, if the state had it on, 100% certainty that Matt Robinson and Amber Robinson said it, a 5-day preliminary hearing would be a good time to say we have enough evidence. And I can tell you why Matt Robinson made this statement, and here is his statement that he signed. That would have been a good time to present that evidence.
That would also be a good time for the defense to say that's just totally fabricated.
No, it's not. It's the wrong time.
Why couldn't they?
That is completely the wrong time.
Why couldn't they?
Because what they're doing is they already said they didn't receive discovery. They literally can't. They literally can't because they can't. They did not receive discovery. You're saying that they didn't
receive that information?
No. They just received the text messages. But in order to...
That's not the text messages.
The probative information.
Yeah, we're talking about the information that we just reviewed. That's not the text messages.
They never presented it. The state never put it on.
Yeah, they didn't. The defense could easily still have presented this. Yeah.
No.
They could have said they're no. They're not allowed to. Are you sure?
In a preliminary hearing,
yeah,
the defense is engaging with whatever evidence the state decides to put on. They did not put this on as evidence. Brian Davis was up there.
So they're not allowed to present anything?
They're responding to the state's evidence.
Are they allowed to present anything?
They are allowed to say...
Like if there was a conspiracy that they could prove right then and there, would they present that in one of these hearings?
No, it wouldn't be the right time for that.
I disagree. I think that they not only could do it, but they would do it. In fact, when I talked in depth with my attorney, they said that's exactly, if you had actual evidence that there was fabrications by the feds, that's exactly when you would introduce that.
So when in the document that they filed yesterday or a couple of days ago, the appropriate, like what you're doing at this stage of the hearing is the state is saying we have enough evidence that we think this needs to go forth for the trial. Hence the reason that there's this extraordinary, we allow hearsay because it doesn't really need to be perfect. It can be enough that we feel like we can move forward.
I don't believe they allow hearsay at preliminary hearings, but I've never been to Utah.
In general, when somebody's rotting in prison, but whatever. The next phase is for them to meet in court and for the defense to essentially present an argument to the state that says,
because you can say,
we find this filing to be defective in and of itself. We don't even have to defend ourselves because you, the state, have enough, you know what the laws are on the books. And this filing is defective and you should get rid of these charges because they don't make sense based on what you can decide based on a law on the books. So then that's why they then file the dismissal, right? So in the dismissal, what they're doing is they are engaging, and this is what was widely misinterpreted.
Well, yeah, they're engaging as though as it's a hypothetical. If this is hypothetically true, then
so they're saying all of these charges.
I'm not disputing any of that.
So that's what you're asking. Why you're saying could they just put
what I'm asking specifically is like who could shut parents up who are like, no way, there's no possible. This never happened. This is ridiculous. They would be shouting it on CNN. They would be shouting it from the rooftops. They would be losing their minds. And you're like, nope, the gag order would be enough to keep them quiet. Not enough for them to talk
For
to your
governments
source, but
might
enough
be
to keep them
involved.
quiet. I think that that's quite ridiculous. But I'll even concede this whole point to you. Let's just say
And Andrew Wilson
maybe this was misconstrued, right? If
he's
there's
kind of being
there's
unfair
a
in
little
the
bit of
idea
reason
that
to doubt it because we're still
he
waiting for
calls
the
her
evidence for
argument
trial.
ridiculous
If that's
and
the case, then why not take the
unbelievable
same
and all that,
standard
like-
for the evidence that you present? You're just waiting for trial.
It's
Well,
worth
you didn't do
listening
that.
to.
Wait
the
a
reason
second.
we're here.
And there's
Wait a second.
definitely, she's definitely
I just want to make sure that I got
I
this
don't know
right.
if she gets
That's
it
your
right.
argument to me, right?
But you
My
can't
argument
say
to you is
there's,
what?
My
Sorry.
There's nothing
argument,
there.
your
This is-
argument to me
you know,
is that, hey, wait a
this is a
second,
good
Andrew,
investigation.
There's not
Everything
enough here
checks
that
out to
convinces me. right?
Well,
No
that's
loose
actually my
ends,
rebuttal
everything's
to
tied
you,
up.
is that you are saying, why are people engaging in what you term to be conspiracy theories?
No.
I term it to be thinking. They're
Mhm.
just thinking because they're recognizing there are a lot of holes in these stories and that this is not strong evidence, right? This is the reason they're doing it. I'm
But just
explaining to you,
asking
this is the
questions.
reason that they're
You're
doing it.
skeptical of
I'm
your government.
addressing
That's part of
what
being
you view
American.
to be
Yeah.
overwhelming
Seriously,
evidence.
it is.
And by the way, I want to be clear,
That which
what
convinces
you're,
me.
what, yeah, well, but thus far,
And this is
every
just like,
every
that's-
point that you
doesn't
brought
convince
up,
you.
See,
every
American
point that you
conservatism
brought
is
up,
necessarily
did you
liberal
feel like this is
in so many
beyond a
ways.
reasonable doubt? I mean, you realize
Remember what I said in my
he's
opening.
going to be.
It's not beyond a reasonable doubt.
Mhm.
It's just what I find convincing is what I find overwhelming.
So why are you so upset when people say they don't find it
If
convincing?
that was the limitation of the claims that you made, if it was
That's a good
just,
point.
wait a second, there's a little bit of problems. There's some problems in this case that I have questions for that I want answers to. Nobody have a problem, actually. Least of all me. I would be the least likely person to have an issue with it, you, any of your fans, anybody saying. In fact, I've had tons of Discord calls about this. My position's always been clear. Of course, conspiracies exist. Some of them have way better evidence than others, but I've seen them myself. I know conspiracy. In fact, the federal government has hundreds of thousands of laws about conspiracies. They see them everywhere. We both know this, right? That's never what the problem is. The problem is when you make claims outside of, well, wait a second. I'm just questioning evidence here. I'm just questioning what the state's case is here. I'm just asking questions. It's when you make claims outside of that, where you claim that there's good evidence or good standards you should believe because, and then it turns out that it's all nonsense or it's wackadoo stuff or it makes no sense. And when we have a chance to cross-examine your evidence that you've presented, I'm going to show a lot of that. A lot of this conjecture that's based on literally nothing, that leads from no inferences whatsoever. Like you couldn't even infer it logically. That's the problem. The problem has never been whether or not you just said, you know, there's not enough in this case so far until we get to the trial. I remain unconvinced. I'm sure there's tons of people who remain unconvinced yet until we get to the trial. I think that's fine. I think it's fine. There's people who are convinced too. That's never been my problem. My problem is the claims which are external to that.
Okay,
Necessarily limit facts from coming into a trial.
I'm not sure I
in a court
really
of law.
care if you have a
It's called
problem
motion in
with
limine.
what I think in my own spare time. I don't
Prosecutor
understand
files
this
it and
like
says,
lecture
I
that
don't
you just
think
gave.
this is relevant
But
to the
beyond
case.
that,
The
what I'm
jury
saying is
doesn't
that
need
the
to
state
know
is
it, and
allowed
the judge
to
rules.
use.
I didn't
This is
lecture
what
you.
my this is what my problem
if
is.
you
You
get a
guys are
judge
not
that's
like, yeah, you guys
necessarily
think while it's
friendly to
illegal.
the
You actually
prosecutor,
you
you
can't.
get a lot
You
of your
are allowed
facts
to do that.
excluded.
So, but
So
anyway,
it's
going
like,
back
you
going
just
back
tried
to
in a
you
court
saying
of
I
law.
wouldn't have a
That's the
problem.
ultimate arbiter of
I think I
justice,
just
and
demonstrated pretty
sometimes you do
thoroughly
even gotta
that
go to a
what
court of
you
public
claim
opinion.
that
It's
you
just
had a
harder
problem
because
with is exactly
people-
what the state is engaged in
it's
at
harder
this
to
stage.
interpret
So
facts
it
with
doesn't
a
make
broader
it just doesn't make
spectrum
sense.
or a broader
That's not the
audience.
case. In
And
fact,
So
the
if
thing
people
is-
look and they
the
say,
case.
The thing
I'm
is
looking at
funny.
the gun and I see and I'm inferring this, and someone else says, I'm looking at the gun evidence and I'm inferring that, they're both doing the exact same thing.
They're not.
You're just saying, I want to do it for the state.
That's propositionally false.
That
I'll
is not
explain- I'll
propositionally
explain
false.
exactly how. It is the case that every proposition is going to have a true or false
And those were
conclusion,
court
period.
cases
That's
that
just
were
logic,
meant to be kept
right? It's the
private.
law of excluded
You
middle.
know,
All
so
propositions
imagine
are
if
going
you
to be
just
true
forego
or
the
they're going
court
to be
case
false.
entirely and try
When we
everything
get
in the
into when
public
we're
eye,
making
I mean, it's
inferences, we're making inferences
so
based
messy, but
on
that's where we're headed.
propositions. We can actually come to true conclusions with
unless we
false
can restore faith
premises
and confidence
inside
in our legal
of a
system.
proposition. In fact, what we're talking about here is not whether or not you feel that you're convinced by this evidence,
But you felt like you were
right?
convinced.
Sure. But here's the thing. When you ask me my reason, Andrew, why are you convinced by
What are
this?
you
I can
convinced
give you
by,
my
Andrew?
reasons why I'm
Please.
convinced by it, why it seems reasonable
Bro,
or rational to
please.
me to be convinced.
By all means.
You could even say, but Andrew, I'm just not convinced by it.
Tell me about the
If
stuff
that
you
was the
could do and then
limitation of
do
your
it.
claims, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Dude,
That's
tell
why
me
I
what
wanted
you're
to have
convinced
the
by.
conversation, in fact, was so that we could move into your actual claims that you've made, which transcend the idea of, I'm just asking questions.
Before we get into that, your team has one thing they want to show before you go into that.
Okay.
So if you
We're
want to
gonna
pull that
launch a
up, this is the
faction,
prosecution
A
filing
right-wing
showing
faction
defense
within the Republican
had full
Party, we
discovery
call it
by
the
April
Nebraska
1st.
Salt
Oof.
They did not.
Republicans.
That's not true.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
To date,
Could
the
stand
state's
for strong
prosecutors have
American
disclosed
Lutheran
all
theology.
evidence that is presently and reasonably
Reasonably
available
available.
to them as required under Rule 16, Utah R criminal, to be more precise, as of April 1st.
Yeah, that was not 100%. That's why they're caging that
Rule
by saying
16
what's
Utah
reasonable.
law.
There was entire, and we can
I
pull
can
this
look it
up.
up.
Like, we should now play the Kathy Nestor clip because that's from there. So, and they were basically saying you don't need it at this